Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Unpopular Opinion. I am your devil's advocate, Robert Williams, aka The Free Will. And on today's episode, we are going to have a special guest, somebody who is very prominent in the Orlando community, one of Loud Gallery's favorites. We have with us today Tia Soul.
Hello, my name is Tia.
Hey Tia!
What's poppin'? I'm a singer-songwriter. I'm also a teacher. I work with little babies. Currently, I am working on getting my own little daycare set up. So, I have a lot of experience, 8+ years. So put the word out. I'm looking for clientele, anyone who needs daycare at reasonable prices. I got you.
For the right dollar.
Yes.
She'll make sure your babies don't
know what I'm doing. Okay.
Tia gonna be on the show. I hope she's ready. I really hope she's ready. Because if
ready.
you're not ready, she gonna be ready.
I was born ready.
Alright. She said she was born ready. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, the next thing you're gonna see is the next episode. So we'll be right back after this. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Unpopular Opinion. And if you missed our intro, today we have with us Miss Tia Soul.
What's up, y'all?
I am your devil's advocate, The Free Will. And then we already know my lovely co-host, Dubs. Big Bobby.
Yeah? Alright.
Alright.
Why you over here? This is my couch right here.
Alright, that's just okay. So, the title of today's episode is Kids See Ghosts. The focus on today's episode is going to be dealing with children and child trauma and how that plays into their adulthood and their behaviors. So, let's get it popping. My first question that I'm going to ask our panelists today is, what traumas can children experience?
I mean, this is all you.
You're a teacher.
Yeah,
right.
I'll go first. I feel like they can experience a lot of traumas, verbally, even just the way you speak to a child. It's huge. Because if you're constantly oh, you're ugly, go away, I don't want to see you, just it's not funny because it's serious.
Serious.
Seeing this stuff, and as a teacher, I'm a mandated reporter, So if I see any type of if a child's acting weird or whatsoever, I have to, report that type of stuff, and it all starts from home. And I feel the way you speak to your child, it plays a big part in how they grow up and how they think of themselves. It's super important.
Verbal abuse. I think that's a real big thing with as far as in our black communities, we do a lot of backhand compliments. It's you really can't give a compliment without saying something bad behind it, look at you, or ugly self, that's a nice ass suit, or ugly self, stuff like that. So it's so do you like it, or do you not like it? And that's kind of something that I think we as a people, we've kind of just conditioned ourselves to get just to be a part of and get along with, but we don't really see how that kind of plays into the larger aspects and the later aspects of life too.
I think of course physical abuse is something that would be traumatic to a child, anybody really, any type of physical abuse. But I think, like you said, we don't really think about, or at least a lot of parents don't think about the verbiage and emotional damage that they can cause a child just based off of how you're raising your child in itself. Just like you said, the way you speak to them, the tone you use, what you say in different, because growing up from 0 to 18, those are, you grow the most just because you're literally becoming a whole ass human. So your brain is developing, and a lot of people are the way they are because of their childhood. I feel like your childhood is your core part of how you start your entire life. So things that happen in your childhood stay with you for the rest of your life. So if I'm used to, as a girl, if I'm used to my dad, emotionally abusing me or being absent or not, you know what I'm saying? That's something that I might take into finding a husband or finding a life partner. Those are things that you reflect back to. Your childhood is just things that you reflect back to. So.
Back to your point, in our society, our best friends rank us. If you're not cool if you don't rank me, you feel me? Because you know me on a personal level, and we attack those.
Disclaimer: rank is Urban Dictionary to
mess
with the person,
or like they fire you up just for the fun of it. You feel me? But yeah, they rank you or they fire you up because they know most about you, and since they know most about you, they gonna not attack it, but bring it out as a joke, even though they don't know if you're really insecure about it or not. And a habit that's really not hard to break, but most parents have when they belittle their children academically because they look at them as an adult, thinking they know all these things, but they don't. It's your job to teach them. You feel me? And I feel like some parents don't know the difference between discipline and listening. You feel me? So it's just that's something you should think about.
I feel like, and as a parent, I'm still, my child is only 6, but he's still a baby. 6 is still a baby. And I have to catch myself sometimes, the way I do talk to him. I be talking to him like he's a grown man sometimes, and I be like, chill, he's still a baby. Explain, what I want him to do. He's not gonna know automatically, so.
Environmental traumas, especially for us minorities. A lot of times stuff that goes on in our neighborhood is very, very traumatizing. Being poor is traumatizing. A lot of times people don't really understand that.
That's a fact.
Yeah,
it's a lot of times it's if you grow up without wealth or what you don't perceive to be wealth, it's you're gonna work your entire life feeling like you're unsuccessful or feeling like you're unaccomplished because you haven't achieved something. So growing up poor, that's traumatizing. Being systematically oppressed, that's traumatizing. Especially for, again, a lot of us minorities, a lot of us black people, we are conditioned to a certain stigma to where we have to meet a certain standard to live in a predominant white society. But that's still traumatizing because at the end of the day, it's one, do we really know how to be ourselves as a people? Do I really know how to be myself as Robert or Robert as a black man? No, all I know is I'm conditioned to do this for the plight of other people, but now when I try to do something for me, I don't know how to act, I don't know how to operate. Right. And I think that's where a lot of the stress that comes from our communities, the stress that befalls a lot of our communities, I think that's where a lot of it comes from. So just the environmental triggers. You grow up being called racial slurs, or you grow up seeing fights. I'll never forget, and this is another personal story, there was a kid who got shot over a chain, and it was the stupidest thing ever. It happened right outside my bus stop. Me and all the other kids, we got on the bus like it was nothing. Because we can't say anything about it, because we know the person who shot. But then it's if we say something words and get out, that's us, that's our families, that's stuff that happens to us.
You gotta protect yourself.
Somebody gets robbed, that's a traumatizing experience. When women get abused in almost every which kind of way. It can be something as small as just hollering at them down the street, and it can be they didn't receive it, but it's still a type of verbal abuse or something like that. So it's all those different things that can traumatize somebody and condition them to be a certain way as opposed to what they could initially be if they didn't experience that. How can adults recognize traumas in children?
My parents, they don't listen. They don't take the actual time to listen to the child. They're more concerned with being a parent than being a friend. And at times, sometimes, your child needs a friend, someone they can talk to, someone they can hey, Dad, I'm feeling like this or this way or whatever. And we don't have that comfortability, or we don't feel comfortable in talking to our parents as friends, or letting them know we have a problem because we feel like they're going to judge us, or they're going to push us off because you're just talking foolishness. Why are you thinking like this? And I feel like in order to break that, you just actually have to just sit down and just listen. Listening is the first step to any conversation. And when we feel comfortable, or the child feels comfortable in opening up to you, then you have a whole entire bond. Yeah. In order to you're supposed to have a bond with your children because they're your offspring. You're leaving them on this earth for you. They're supposed to carry your name or just carry your blood so they can be great, and you're just neglecting them because you're either in this job too much or doing other activities trying to support. But it's cool to support, but we need love and attention and affection. These are things that create a home, not a household.
A lot of times, maybe the way that the parent was showing affection is the same way that they're giving it to the child. So they could still be teaching you that, well, if it's not that big of an issue, we're going to ignore it. And that could be them just trying to tell you this isn't something that you should be worried about. And I know a lot of parents, there is that distinction between I'm your parent and I'm not your friend. So that could just be this is just me trying to understand, advocate for the older generation too. Because a lot of times the way they're teaching you is how they were taught.
Yeah, but you gotta understand, like we're in a society where we're constantly evolving. Now, the way you was brought up or raised, you want to teach me that, but I'm screaming out to you. I'm like, yo, listen, this is what's happening now. Like, yo, social media, this and that. Like, I'm trying to talk to you about these things that's either pressuring me or like I feel uncomfortable about.
Are your parents older?
Yeah, my mom, like 40, 50.
So that's
Nigga, that's not old.
So you say you're crying out. You're trying to get them. Again, the question is, how can adults recognize trauma in children? So how can they see that you're going through something? We know that you need the attention. You're crying out, but like what are signs that you're crying out for help? Or what are signs that this is something that is traumatizing me, this is something that bothers me?
I think kids show that.
The way they act.
Yeah, kids
I
are
agree.
able
Some
to misbehaving, right? Negative attention, any type of attention, crying, tantrum,
Not sleeping.
not sleeping,
Like
just
letting themselves.
if it's like trauma like that, yeah, stuff like that can occur. I think another thing is you have to pay attention to the child. Like you have to know how their mannerisms are to sense if something's wrong with them. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're the type of parent or teacher or anything that isn't paying attention to the child's mannerisms or aren't picking up on their characteristics, how are you going to be able to tell if something is off? You know what I'm saying? Like you have to pay attention to kids. And I think a lot of the times we push kids to the side thinking that they're just kids. Like
It ain't nothing.
they'll grow up.
big
Yeah,
deal.
it's no big deal. What they're feeling is minute to adult shit. But at the same time, like that's a core age in a child's life. Like everything that child goes through is gonna matter at some point in their lives. You know what I mean? So it might be minute to you because you're older and you're an adult, but you have to pay attention to kids. Like I have a lot of cousins and nieces and nephews, and you know they all have their own different personalities. Like they're little people. They feel. You know what I mean? I think they feel a lot. And just growing up as a child, going back, like I went through a lot as a kid, just in my own head, just being a kid, just being misunderstood. A lot of kids are misunderstood.
Yeah, they really are.
So I think taking the time out, and a lot of parents, like you said, growing up poor, that's a trauma because you don't have your parent. Your parents are sitting there trying to make sure we
Make
eat.
sure you eat, you feel me?
Like I understand you feel things. I understand you're my child. I'm sorry, but we gotta live. Like we gotta eat. So if I have to choose working overtime or go to your basketball game, I'm gonna work because we need the money. Right, exactly. So like you said, there's just a lot of factors. But I think the main thing parents can do is just pay attention to their kids and try to, like you said, listen to your kids. They're kids, but they have their own opinions.
My son told me the other day, he came home from school like, Mommy, I want to be the president of the United States one day. And I was like, baby, you can do just that. And then like, but at that point, like, I took what he said into consideration and I explained it further. I was like, it's not an easy job. Like there's steps to this. Like this is what we got to start doing if this is what you want to be when you get older. Like I was talking to him about being a mayor and senator and governor and stuff like that. And he's like, word, let's do this. You know, I feel like you have to like inspire them too. Cause like I have kids at my job that I see them acting out and like screaming and hitting their teachers and stuff. And I sit back, and I'm like, why are they acting like that? And then you see how the parents interact with the child, and I'm like,
And they
that's
just mimic,
why.
they just copy the behavior. A lot of times, when it comes to parenting, because we are the child of our parents, we think that a lot of their issues, we think that's just another me. So it's like, oh, I went through that when I was a kid, so now I know how to handle it. But at the end of the day, that's not you. That's your child, but that's not you. That's a completely different human being. The way you respond to something or the way you take something is not the way that they're gonna take it just because they are born of you. And I think that's another key element that I think that's where a lot of the disconnect or the miscommunication is between generations. And I'm not gonna say just the older generation with us, between every generation. I think it's that whole, I'm like you, but I'm not you. There are certain things that genetically I can't discredit. If I look like my mom, I look like my mom. If I act like my dad,
A lot
I
of
act
the time,
like my dad.
it's sorry to cut you off. It's the trauma that the parent went through that they're trying to withhold from the child. Like my mom, she went through a lot in her life, like from start to like she's not finished obviously, but like she's just been through a lot of trauma as a child, and I was very sheltered because of that. Like she just kept me in a bubble, and she just didn't want me to have to experience anything remotely close to anything she had to experience. But at the same time,
kept you closed off.
At the same time, her having me so sheltered probably wasn't, you know what I'm saying? Like, I wasn't as open with her and stuff I experienced because I was afraid to hurt her. You know what I mean? It didn't come from hurting myself or any decision I was making for myself. It was more, I didn't want you to be disappointed in me and to feel hurt by me. Because my mom's a crier. Like, anything I tell her, she's gonna fucking cry. Like, I got a tattoo, she, like, acted like I was, like, dying or something. It was ridiculous.
When my mom saw my tattoo, bust out crying, caused a scene over everybody, and she took it as, like, a personal attack because it was like, I raised you not to do that. I'm like, and I had to tell her, like,
It's your body.
it's my body, but it wasn't even so much as that. It was, this doesn't reflect how great
you
of
raised
parent
me,
that
yeah.
you've been. This was a decision I made that I gotta deal with.
Right.
I know I'm a
had to
child
explain
now,
that to
like,
my mom
it's
too.
not-
Like, decisions I'm making in my life doesn't reflect on the type of parent that you were to me. You were a great mom. You did you know what I mean? I
Did what you're
I wouldn't
supposed
have
to do.
wanted a better person to be my mother. But at the same time, like, the decisions I make, that's my life. You know what I'm saying? Like, I have to deal with that. I have to deal with my choices. And when I moved out of the house very young, again, because I was very sheltered. So when I moved out, she took it as a personal attack against herself. Like, she felt as though I was leaving her. And it's like, I'm always going to be your kid. I'm always going to be your child. But that's, again, based off of the trauma she experienced in her childhood with her mother.
And
so
this
it
is
all
how it
stems
affected
back.
you.
Right. And I feel like our generation and you being a young mom, like, you can break that mold of the generational pattern that we, grandparents to parents to child. You know what I mean? I feel like our generation is in a position to break that mold with our children. Like, I don't need to be like that.
I do want to say though, like, growing up, I was very, very loved by both of my parents. Like, even though they didn't work out as long as like other parents do and stuff, I was very, very loved by them. But like, I feel like as I got older and I started like knowing and like observing more, I was seeing all of the issues that were really there. And like, it really hit me at that point when I got older. Like, I was super depressed, like attempted suicide, like the whole shebang when I was like in middle school. And then like, even still to this day, like I still battle like depression, like I'm still, all because of like what I started seeing between them as a child. And so being a mom now, you know, stuff I'm going through with my son's father, I don't want him seeing that stuff because of what I went through. So I try to shield him from it, you know, the best way that I can. And for other people, it seems like I'm being selfish or, you know, I'm trying to keep him from whatever, but it's me shielding him from that so he doesn't have to deal with that type of trauma that I went through. But I'm raising him on love, to love both of his parents as much as he can either way, like even though we're not together, you know? And I'm teaching him to like live through love and spread all that love that he can. I don't want him to be traumatized like how I was, you know? So,
Good for you, girl. Raise that baby.
I'm trying.
Well, I got a story to tell. If that's okay with you, you good?
Yeah, I'm alright.
Don't cry,
I'm good. Hey,
Please don't start crying.
I'm good. If I cry, I cry. I'm straight.
Come on,
Because
man.
I'm the most
Don't say
emotional
that.
person
Look
ever.
at here, look at
Let's
here.
not do this.
There is nothing wrong with men crying.
No,
I am
no,
emotional.
absolutely not. I wish more men were
I am
more
emotional.
to
So
be
if I
honest.
cry, I gotta get myself together. Y'all just let me cry. Alright?
You got it. You got it.
So our last point is, are traumatized persons still responsible for their actions? If so, how can we help them as they enter into adulthood?
Absolutely. I feel like you can't blame, like to a certain degree, I feel like you can blame your traumas on the way you act, but like at the same time it's like, but what are you doing to correct your behavior? You know what I mean? Like I'm not going to act out and then be like, oh well, it's just because of what I've been through. Like I see it and I want to correct it. Like I'm not gonna continue. Yeah. You have to.
But that comes with age as well. So if we're still talking in child perspective, depending on the trauma that they went through, yes, you can still hold them accountable, but they're still children.
Yeah.
They're still developing their brain. There's that amount of accountability you can put on a child depending on their age, depending on what they've been through. But in your adult life, I feel like there comes a time where it's like, okay, you can only blame your past for so long. Like at some point you have to grow out of it. You have to start evolving into, like this is adulthood. We're entering adulthood or we're in adulthood already. And there comes a time where Yes, I went through that, but it does not define me. It is not who I am. I am not my trauma. I am me.
That's easier said than done.
Facts.
Definitely.
Facts.
And so again, how can we help? How can we help coming into adulthood?
The first thing you gotta do is forgive. Like, even though it's hard, you have to forgive so you can, like,
That's a good
Not
point.
hold that grudge.
yeah,
for the
because,
rest
like,
of your
that's
life.
something
Yeah.
you'll hold with you forever. And people don't understand that, like, oh, it happened to you, just forget about it. No, you can't forget about it, because that's a moment that plays in your head, like, forever.
Right.
And
But forgiving, not
Forgetting,
forgetting,
yeah.
but forgiving.
Forgiving, but
You
don't
can have it in your head, but if you forgive that person that created that
Remember,
trauma for you,
don't let
it-
that shit happen again.
It's like you're at peace.
it's
But
yeah,
forgive
it's
them.
a peace
Let
within
it-
yourself. Some people like don't know themselves without that pain. So I think a good way, at least in kids and in people who are in education, is creativity. I know for me that's been a big help in releasing anything that I've been through or any trauma that I've experienced. Is just being creative, write. Even if you're not a writer, sing. Even if you're not a singer, dance. Even if you're not a dancer, be self-expressive. Get your
Find some way to channel your
some
emotions
outlet.
and get them out.
It's an outlet. You need an outlet or you're gonna explode, implode within yourself. Like anything that makes you feel like you're getting, you know what I mean?
I feel like I want to say something that like kind of correlates to like your last
Go ahead. You're
episode
gonna be
with like
our
insecure.
last one, okay?
I feel like the thing with my music, like I'm super insecure about my music, and it all trickles down to growing up and like having people like, you're no good, like you don't want to do that, you don't really enjoy doing that, and so like it was like happening so much, and like with my son's father, it was just like throwing all these negative things about me and making music that like it's stuck with me. So now like I get happy and I make music, and then like I go back to that dark side because I hear him like, you don't want to really do this, like this is not what you really want to do, you're no good, like you're a nobody.
I'm here to tell y'all
You
right
know?
now, she's nice. Oh my God,
But like
this girl is nice.
But that trauma, like it's a traumatizing thing. Even my father, like, my father was always like the be creative and be yourself, but like he's an old-fashioned person.
Mhm.
So he's like very business and like corporate, like get a real job, like you're never gonna make anything from this, So I don't know, it just all trickles down to that.
Thank you everybody for sharing. I know we took a little bit more of a serious tone today, but if it's one thing that I do personally care about, I love the kids. I care about children.
Love
Children
them so
children are our
much.
future. And as adults, whether we be young or old adults, we do gotta pay attention to what we do.
And listen.
And yeah, we gotta pay attention to what we do and listen. Doing one thing and telling somebody to do another is not something that works. Especially with children, they follow our actions. So whatever you want a child to do, you want a child to emulate, you have to do it. If you want to see change, you have to be changed. If you cannot be changed, then you are not ready to see change. All right, we're gonna end off on that. This is another episode of The Unpopular Opinion. Thank you so much for our lovely guests. It's Tia Soul.
And I kind of went off.
No, you're good. You're good, man. You're good.
And my mind kind of just like,
You're good. We got Dubs, we got Big Bobby, and again, I'm your devil's advocate, Free Will. Signing out. See y'all later.